All right, the title is pretty accurate, and I'm definitely about to clown on Diablo 4 kind of a lot, but that being said, people can enjoy and play whatever they want to. It's not a bad game, strictly speaking. There are good parts, I'll try to also make sure to mention those, but every time I play Diablo 4, I catch myself thinking more than once every single session, why is it like this, and why don't I just go play Path of Exile?
True.
For starters, this is a $70 game with microtransactions. I want everyone to remember that as I go deeper into the review, because
That's what I
that
kept
matters.
saying.
$70 with expensive microtransactions.
That's what I kept saying.
Fun. Maybe you don't care, but why don't I just play Path of Exile then? Unlike Diablo 4, it's free, and with $70 I can buy plenty of discounted cosmetics and utility items, of which there are more and better than Diablo 4. Great start. In the background right now, there's some footage of a rogue I started leveling, but it's not exactly where I want it to be just yet. Long way to go, of course. I really do enjoy the gameplay at times, so it's easy to get sucked in and keep playing dungeons for like one continuous session, but the reason I play games like this, really boiling it down to the absolute minimum, is to make character builds and get loot. Games like Diablo 4 are fundamentally about those two things, builds and loot. What you get for loot determines how you can build, and how you build determines how
I
fast...
I gotta guess. There's only a few builds, and the loot gets really boring, and you're basically done with it by the time you're level like 60, 70, minor upgrades until 80-ish, and then you basically can't get better gear afterwards. I get it. What's the title of the video? Diablo 4, just go play Path of Exile.
You can get for loot, and if you can ascend through the difficulties and continue to get the better loot. It's a binary cycle, and it's pretty fun. Diablo 4 pulls it off acceptably well. Genuinely, it does. But when you look at these two systems apart from each other, and then look at the ways that they interact with one another, things kind of start to unravel.
God, I hate
Diablo
that
4 progression
bubble.
basically goes like this. What you do from level 1 to level 60 doesn't really matter. That's just leveling. 60 or 70 to like 90 or so is mid-game, and after that you get towards endgame. Some people have different definitions of early, mid, and late game. They say that mid-game is really about 45 onwards to 80, but you get the point. Early, mid, late as general units, where early is just a grind fest to get something functional. Mid-game
And this is a problem with ARPGs in general. And this is, what was it? Josh Strife Hayes has a video on it that's really good. There's a few videos these days about a game shouldn't have to... And I think both PoE and Diablo 4 do this okay, but a game shouldn't require you to play, 20, 30, 40 hours until it gets good. The problem is that leveling experience loses the luster immediately. Luckily, Path of Exile has some interesting knobs that they can turn to keep it kind of interesting, particularly once you get into trying to make it, optimize it and all that. I think the big downside, right, with Diablo 4 here, going off of his premise, I bet you the vast majority of players will never, they're probably going to do the Diablo 3 thing where leveling becomes much easier later on. I'm almost guaranteed they're going to do that, right? Because since Endgame currently doesn't start until literally level 100, like it actually doesn't, you can't do Uber Lilith until level 100. The vast majority of players, like I have one friend that he's my example of a normie player that really likes video games. Like loves Diablo. Like particularly, he's a Diablo 2 player. Like he loves Diablo 2 and he's enjoying Diablo 4, but he just hit level 90 today. Like he just posted it in Discord. He's like, "Hey guys, I just hit level 90 today. Time to start the end game." He likes the game a lot, but he only plays like 1 to 2 hours a day maximum. He has to make the decision, am I going to hang out with the wife and, relax, eat some nachos, a little smooching, a little kissing, a little, we don't worry about that type of stuff. We don't get distracted, right? Because we're gamers. The other option is that he could play Diablo 4 and he could play video games. He makes that decision, right? He works, then gets home, he goes to the gym, cringe, and then he gets home, then he takes a shower, double cringe, ew, exercise and clean. And then he makes dinner and hangs out with his wife, triple cringe, other human being. Oh my God, girls, cooties, ew. Then he decides, okay, I'm going to spend more time, or do I play video games? And this is so many people, right? This is actually the average player. This is a problem for ARPGs in general, not for gamer lords like us, right? All of us here. That's assuming that you are not playing any other games. What if you, put the wife to bed, made sure she's satisfied, cooked her a nice dinner, I did the dishes, and now I get 2 hours to play games. And like, yo, I'm gonna tuck in. I'm gonna play some Diablo 4. But then, boom, yo, dude, how's it going, man? Oh, we just logged into Valorant. New Valorant season just dropped. Yo, what's going on? You're like, man, I was just gonna play Diablo 4 tonight, but everyone's online, dude. Let's play some Valorant, man. Let's fucking go. Don't play Diablo 4. What are you, a sorcerer? You're gonna cast a lightning bolt? Yeah. Okay, lightning bolt, nerd. Let's shoot some guns like real men. Then all your boys are going to bring you in. You're not playing Diablo 4 all night, right? You're not playing that. So you're going to play maybe every other night. You'll play like 1 to 2 hours of Diablo 4. If a season lasts 3 months, you're barely going to reach the definition of endgame, right? And he said level 90. I would say, level 70 to 80. I'm okay with calling that like the endish game, right? Because like nothing really happens 70 plus, right? Generally by that time, maybe 80, you'll have most of your pieces for your build put together. Continuing.
Refinement of some kind of build, and late game is grinding content to perfect rolls on gear. Early game is pretty fun. You start scavenging for gear, learning what the unique bonuses do from the different items, putting something together on the fly, maybe playing with your cosmetics, and feeling the basic curve of power progression. It's enjoyable. At least it has been for me a couple of times, but you very quickly start running into problems. See, early game is genuinely fun. The story is good, the combat is good, the progression feels nice, and that sort of, a piece of candy mentality is really fresh on your mind, so you just feel good about playing. However, as soon as you get into mid-game, it throws you a curveball. For starters, you only have 4 stash tabs. This is interesting, and it will, of course...
Diablo 4's this most embarrassing feature. That's all I'm saying. This sucks. This really sucks. This really, really sucks. I agree. 4 stash tabs. Cringe.
Guaranteed for a price tag in a $70 game that also has microtransactions. But I catch myself thinking, why don't I just play Path of Exile? At least there I can actually keep the gear I want to. Some people might say, oh, well, you're just nitpicking here, but no, I'm not. Diablo 4 has a lot of interesting gear. That's one of the best aspects of the game. I want to collect it. That's the purpose. That's the whole point of the game. But I can't really collect it because I don't have the space to collect it. All the gems, which don't have their own tab, funnily enough, take up a large chunk of my stash capacity, and this kind of terrible loot management extends to every facet of the game. There's no search function for the stash, like there is in Path of Exile. They doubled up and keep 2 of the most critical consumable items, of which you will want to hoard many of them, by the way, over the course of your playtime, those being elixirs and sigils, in the same sub-inventory slot, so you constantly have to play this mini-game of hot potato if you actually want to maintain a hoard of loot. And they don't have any sort of quick drop function, so if you ever get in the thick of it for a dungeon and need to make rapid decisions about inventory or what to carry, you can't even do that quickly because you have to drag things physically around like a moron with the inventory open. Now, for build functionality, I had a lot of fun, okay? It might be surprising to hear, but I did. For a little bit. After that, I realized something. Why was I spending time trying to find creative ways to use this skill tree right here when I could have access to this one? Once again, the question loomed in my head.
Oh, the old skill tree!
Why don't I just play
the old brown skill tree. Guys, remember when the skill tree was brown? Oh, it's so nostalgic. Yeah, we don't have this one. It's not brown anymore. It's just dark. Yeah, the old skill tree when it was brown. Guys, look where elemental equilibrium is. Oh my god, elemental equilibrium. It's right there.
Path of Exile. To be fair, I like the Pantheon system in Diablo 4. It's interesting, it's fun to creep across the board, and the abundance of points can make it super satisfying to unlock secondary bonuses and piece together functional damage. But wait, no, because if you want to reset something significant way back in the tree towards actual endgame...
Oh, it's the worst. Oh, I did this once. D4builds.gg. How do we even do this? Paragon. This is the worst thing ever. If you have... he's making great points. If you have a tree, a board all the way up here, right? If you have this board up here, and this board is rotated wrong, this is exactly what I did. I had like 4 boards. And this one, I realized I rotated it wrong, and I wanted to rotate it to make like the glyph node a little bit closer. I had to unclick every single one by one. Million gold, million gold, million gold. All the way down. like 200 clicks. So then I could rotate this board and then 200 clicks again to go all the way back up just to rotate the board. It was so bad. Is it different than PoE? So PoE is like very linear, right? Like, PoE is not easy, right? It's not super, super easy. If I want to move this point right here, I can just connect a different node, move these points, and then unconnect that node. I don't have to undo all of this just to move this point. I can just like connect down here, move this point, and then disconnect, the travel points.
Practically everything. Why would I play a game with less content, less convenience, less customization, and less quality of life for 10 times the price tag with less capacity to even keep the gear I find? That question was getting pretty hard for me to answer. Like I said, early game was fun because everything felt fresh and new, which is a completely intoxicating feeling for me as a video game player, likewise true for most other people out there. But when going through mid-game into endgame on my first character, the honeymoon phase ended unceremoniously.
TB Rogue
For example,
is so strong.
there's a lot of basic components on the map organized nicely into their own little list on the side of your inventory. And at first that's cool. The UI is not great, but it's fine. So there's components, whatever, big whoop. Because you don't really do any respecking or rolling. You don't see the significance here. You don't even pay attention to them. But as soon as you start...
That, by the way, Sork can't do that. What you saw that TB Rogue just do, Sork cannot do that, by the way. Sork can't burst down those bone piles and stuff. I always have to talk about how bad Sork is. She does not have crazy burst damage unless you can like stun, immobilize, chill, freeze everything. She just can't do that. Freaking TB Rogue, bop, 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 vulnerable, dead.
Things get expensive. And a lot of those
Sork has the highest burst in the game. So, yeah, I said to that bone pile, right? That bone pile doesn't count as a normal monster. Sork cannot burst things like that because she has to control them. But out of her cooldowns, if she can't control a monster, she does 0 damage.
Material types are just completely left behind.
But think about the low-level dungeons.
Yeah. It made me wonder, why am I playing this game when Path of Exile has an orb currency system tied directly into a massive crafting function where things always maintain value and practical usage in an economy that facilitates trade and cooperation? Yeah, Diablo 4 basically does not have a player economy. It's
come on. I mean, guys, hold on. Diablo 4 doesn't have a trade economy? Hold on, let me find it. I put the Discord somewhere. I might have left the Discord. Now, here it is. Hold on, guys. I want to trade. Guys, we're going to trade in Diablo 4. Hold on. Diablo 4 channels. Sorcerer FAQ. Where is it? Want to sell. Here we go. Want to sell rares sorcerer. All right, here we go. Guys, we're going to... No, we're going to trade. Hold on. Ooh, want to sell godly 3 out of 4 rings. Start the bid at 50 million. Okay. Wait, the image disappeared. Hold on, where'd the image go? No, the image has got Discord like bugged out. Oh, no, it must have sold. All right, here we go. Want to sell perfect GG ring. Starting bid at 100 million. 1 minute ago. Okay. Okay, nice. All right, what do I do? Oh, so I have to whisper this guy. I have to enter a thread. I have to bid against other people. And then I have to add that person on my BattleNet, invite them to a party, and then we have to meet up somewhere in like Kyovashad, make sure that the servers sync up, and then we can trade. Also, if he dropped that item at level 100 and my character is only level 80, all items drop have the required level of the character that dropped them. Doesn't matter what's on the item, doesn't matter the power level. A sacred item could drop at level 100 and it has a required level of 100, meaning that I can't even, until I'm level 100, the economy basically doesn't exist, or vice versa. If I'm level 100, the items that drop are worth way less because fewer people are able to buy and use them because they're not level 100 yet. Cool. Great trading.
It says it does, but it doesn't. That's fine for solo self-found fans or players, but for someone like me who loves trading with other players of the game and buying or selling in a player-driven economy of sorts, that sucks. Why would I play this game when it quite obviously is unfinished? I hope they make something functional to facilitate a player-driven economy, which doesn't really exist right now, but until they do, there's basically none of that. If we want to talk about general player cooperation, because the game
Sork
is supposed
cannot
to have
kill those bone piles like
MMO-type
that.
elements to it, it does exist in Diablo 4, it's just broken. The cooperation you find is boosting and leeching, because people can just enter an instance, have someone else kill the entire dungeon for them basically instantaneously.
Hold on, is he
and
saying...
get everything immediately? I'm not saying I don't want there to be be some sort of motivation for higher level players to help out lower level ones. Like, that's all well and good. Or some kind of power fantasy where you can get boosted a bit by your buddy who happens to have a badass build. But the total support of leeching and boosting is just way too far and doesn't make sense. This is like the basic framework of a game that just isn't complete yet.
I do think the leeching and boosting is too strong. I agree. I mean, as someone who did not like leveling in the game on my second character, I am very thankful that I got boosted a little bit. It is very, very strong. It's ridiculously strong. But that's just Diablo 3 as well. It comes off of that. Is he, hold on, let me rewind a little bit though.
Does feel good. There to be some sort of motivation for higher level players. Diablo 4, it's just broken. The cooperation you find is boosting and
cooperation. Okay, so he's saying
it just came out.
He's saying no. I actually disagree. If his premise is that group play is not very good, I actually disagree because group play is better. It's better in Diablo 4. I mean, it's not amazing, but it's better in Diablo 4 than it is in than Path of Exile. I actually disagree there. Like Diablo 4 has a very good foundation for incredible group play. Path of Exile group play is awful. It's really bad. At the very least, just riding around with your boys doing Helltides. Yo, what's up? We going to helltides.com right now? Yo, meet up in 30 minutes. I'm going to go make a sandwich. You know, I'm going to rub the missus' shoulders, make sure that we're good. And then, yo, we're logging in, we're tucking in. Open up that bag of Doritos. It's Helltide time, boys. That's legit fun. The world bosses are pretty mediocre, but they're a very good template and foundation for something great in the future. So I disagree that the group play is not very good. The leeching is whatever. I don't mind. I don't care. Boosting is whatever. But
is it okay, though? Is it really okay? It's a $70 game with microtransactions that you'll have to buy utility for, like stash tabs. Is that okay? Really? A good example of what I'm talking about is dungeon design. Basically, every dungeon is the same. Grab 2 or 3 things scattered around, or kill a set of monsters, unlock a door, go kill the main boss, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Well, they split the things that you have to gather or kill or whatever it is into separate locations around the first part of the dungeon, but there's no map overlay. So you have to keep spam opening the map every couple of seconds to see where you've gone and where you have to go next. This results in a lot of backtracking.
I didn't use my map overlay for like a week after switching from Diablo 4 back to PoE. I forgot about my overlay for almost a week. I kept looking in the upper right corner. And I was just playing like this. And then when I realized, I felt so stupid and broken by the game.
It becomes second nature after a while to flash the map every 2 seconds.
It's bad.
But just because I'm used to it doesn't make it good design. And I found myself asking, yet again, why don't I just go play Path of Exile? Most of these issues have already been ironed out in that game. And it's free! Another thing I just have to talk about is hardcore. I used to play hardcore in Path of Exile, and I wasn't amazing at it, okay? I was mediocre at best, but I did have fun. I could get characters into Endgame with decent consistency and maybe not do the crazy bosses or anything like that, but I was able to really engage with that system, and I found it to be pretty enjoyable. Not perfect, mind you, but it was enjoyable. Diablo 4 Hardcore is trivialized completely. The existence of an elixir that cheats death, in combination with how it can be used and a few other mechanics in play here that I don't really need to discuss, that's just tedious, make hardcore basically a joke. Hardcore
what do the
supposed to be
what do the hardcore players say about the, I know they call it mid-core, they keep calling it the medium core flask. Do the hardcore players, like, what do they think about that? Because you kind of would need something like that for Uber Lilith, right? Like, she's actually impossible to learn if you're not playing hardcore because your character gets deleted. I think that's the main issue, right? Yeah, PoE has logout macros. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, the medium core flask, like, you know, maybe the implementation is not the best. I feel like the way the game is designed, you would need something. Logout macro is not the same as cheat death plus TP. Logout macro is a skill, I guess. I don't know. I guess if the cheat death was like, you couldn't just TP out, I guess that would be the thing. If the cheat death gave you like a 2-second invulnerability, but then you had to get to safety, maybe that would be okay. I don't know. I actually don't know how it's implemented. Yeah, like you literally couldn't do Uber Lilith without the cheat death mechanic. I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion on it. I'm wondering what people think.
Precisely that. No safety nets, no second chances. For anyone who wants a challenge of that type, why would you play Diablo 4 where you can basically have a perpetual second chance in hardcore when Path of Exile exists, where hardcore is legitimately tense? And you don't get a constant second chance, which basically invalidates the concept of permadeath by existing. I don't know. Maybe some people disagree with that, and I'm not really going to die on that hill per se, but I just don't see the logic. Endgame is there, but there's not a ton of it. A lot of the endgame feels rather pointless, and just to be sure, I've been chatting with some friends of mine who are much, much more dedicated to grinding the game than I am, who have all basically confirmed my thinking is correct, and they've maxed out multiple characters, etc., etc. So I'm not really qualified to speak on this, so I talked to them, and they are, and the game just gets boring after a while. That's the general consensus. This, to me, isn't as concerning as certain other things that I've already talked about. They will add more content over time. I'm not actually, broken up over that. Seasons will be a thing, but I just have to keep saying this. Why would you pay $70 for something that has broken and shallow components of its core gameplay loop when a completely free alternative called Path of Exile exists right now? There are a lot of recycled bosses. Map progression isn't shared across.
I get it. He's going hard, right? He's going real, real hard on this. I got to pull back a little bit though, right? That Diablo 4 just released. It's a month old. It can go anywhere, right? It can go anywhere. There's so much more that they can add over, and calling the game shallow. I think the game has more end game than I thought it was going to have. Now, it is kind of shallow, but there's more here than I thought it would have. Between the Hell Tides, the end game bosses, I think Strongholds, they need to lean into the Strongholds more. Those are actually cool, unique encounters. Nightmare Dungeons, Whispers. I mean, Whispers suck, but they're there. That's a number of activities more than I thought the game would have on release. It's a solid 2 weeks of content. We have to see what happens in the seasons, right?
Cross characters, which deflated me completely when I went to make my druid. I actually stepped away from the game for a bit.
Yeah, it's better than my low expectations. That's all.
And this one took me a bit to understand, but once I figured it out, I had this aha moment, if you will. Because the way dynamic level scaling works, you actually hurt yourself if you don't level properly. That may sound stupid, but let me explain. Every time you level, monsters level with you. Going out and grinding a few levels on something that seems fairly easy at the time in order to get stronger for other content isn't really a thing, because you need to be slotting every point you get into tangible immediate bonuses, or else leveling actively hurts the power fantasy. I'm not kidding. It may be subtle at times, and I don't know, maybe I'm misunderstanding some of this, or I had a
Is he just saying if your build is bad, your build is bad? Is that what he's saying? I'm trying to interpret this. If you make a bad build, your character feels bad. I get you.
But leveling up actively hurts the power fantasy unless you put the points in the right places
Diablo
every
4
time
just play
immediately
PoE.
with upgrades to gear alongside as you go. Now, sure, that may be fine for some people because they think that's the intended way to play, but I have this pattern personally where I like to grind something out for a while, get a bunch of loot, throw it in the stash, go sort it, check it out, sit in town, understand it all, figure out what's good, plug in upgrades, and then spend skill points.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. If you play that way, I get it. If you play that way, I totally get it. If you just want to I'm going to just level up in this one little area, and then when I'm ready for the next area, playing an RPG the way you normally would. I'm just going to stash all the gear, and then I'll go in and refine the build, and then I go to the next area. That totally makes sense. I really enjoy the fresh character leveling up experience, right? I'm gonna craft after I killed Katava, right? You saw I went to my hideout, I went and I craft res on all my gear, I crafted some strength and stuff, and I made sure that my stuff was tuned, etc. I like to do that. That way I make sure that my character is ready as it levels up the entire, throughout the progression. But if I was just racing and then I was gonna wait for a checkpoint to then, do that, I would get that. That would make sense.
Can't do that. When I try, I'm confronted by the fact that I don't have enough stash space to even do it. My character is weaker because I'm not doing enough constant incremental upgrades. Basically, I can't build outwards around a certain node, accomplishing a task over time the way that I want to, or I'll get weaker. And I have no search function, so the inventory portion of the game, even the skill tree portion of the game, is just tedious. Again, there's fun to be had for some players. I'm not going to dispute that. I'm just not really the one having that fun anymore. Learning the stats was fun. It genuinely was. I always enjoy that. But not everybody does, and it was fun until I discovered that vulnerability is a multiplicative damage type applied after other bonuses, thereby massively superior. Basically, any build that can't use vulnerability heavily is dead in the water. That was lucky for me because I
Very
happened to
true.
have used a couple different things
Very,
that all
very true.
heavily prioritized it on my first couple of characters. But man, my enthusiasm for the game was getting sapped really quickly after a certain point, and I can imagine that people that aren't as in tune with the stats kind of side of things are not really going to have a fun time when they realize how shallow this game actually is. ARPGs, for me at least, are about loot and unique character builds. I know that's not everyone, but I'm just talking about my subjective experience here. The loot gets repetitive fast in Diablo 4 and doesn't even really have in-depth customization. Why wouldn't I just play Path of Exile, where I can basically take a piece of shit white item from anywhere and slowly turn it into the greatest thing ever with the customization and crafting? Why would I play a 70...
Actually, by the way, I strongly recommend starting from a fractured blue item that you can buy off the marketplace. It's going to be way better for crafting.
$1 game where it's quite literally tedious to look at and sort through the loot and inventory, while I can't store it anywhere because there's no stash capacity, when a free alternative simply doesn't have those problems. The builds, they start off cool until they're not, and I'm sure one day I'll circle back to Diablo 4 and appreciate it when they iron out all the broken stuff, but for my playstyle, it just doesn't cut it for me. I could keep going about the different individual activities, or capstone dungeons, or renown, etc., and I'm sure the diehard fans will be upset that I haven't, because Helltide is super good, and yes, it is quite fun. Or,
That's what I said. I said Helltide's good.
you're a scrub who doesn't understand the genius. Yes, I'm probably a scrub compared to some or most of you, but at the end of the day, if I'm looking at this game from my own unique individual perspective, and if I were forced to give it a numerical rating, I'd give it a go play Path of Exile out of 10. There's legitimately no reason that I see to purchase this game right now. In the end, people can and will, of course, enjoy Diablo 4. It's not for me to ridicule or shame anyone or say anything about that. I'm not saying you can't think that this game is amazing. There's plenty of things here that are well made and fun to play, but this shit's not ready yet. It just isn't. You can like what you like, and I won't make fun of anyone for it.
I agree with that.
Making this...
That's what I was saying the whole time too. I mean, I've already said it 10 times during this reaction, right? I think there's a solid 2 weeks of content in Diablo 4. Season 1 doesn't look like it's baking the game entirely yet. Here's the thing. A single ARPG has never released fully baked, right? It's hard. ARPGs are hard. And it takes a long time to build up that content pipeline. The thing is about stash space. I have a lot of problems with Diablo 4. Stash space. I think the itemization needs more depth. I think vulnerability is a problem. I think the skill tree is shallow. In terms of the content in the end game and what's there, I think it's a spectacular foundation with a lot of potential. And that's just not something I would focus on if I was making even a rant video about the game. For the amount of content that the game released with, I think they did a good job. I think they did a legitimately good job. All of the other problems, a $70 game with monetization and all that type of stuff, like plenty of other stuff, like, he makes a lot of other good points, but things like the depth of the content and all that, on release, I think it's acceptable. Considering that the seasons come later and it's known, like that's just the way that ARPGs work, I think it's okay. Yeah, I think the game is okay where it is right now because of the promise of what's coming. And it sucks, right? Hey, I bought a game and it's not there yet in a year, but that's literally ARPGs since day one, right? Like Diablo 2 wasn't good until wasn't as good until the expansion, and they added synergies and all that type of stuff. And Diablo 3 was awful until the expansion. Path of Exile was pretty rough for a few years, right? Early PoE, it probably, honestly, not until Perandus did PoE really hit its stride. And that's a couple years in. Considering the genre and considering how much content an ARPG needs for that depth, I think they did an okay job, honestly. Diablo 2 without rune words, I'm sorry, Jigsaw's, but the big company excuse doesn't really work. That's just not how game dev works. You can't throw money at a game, right, and give it that much. It's too many cooks in the kitchen. I actually think, considering how big the company is, the fact that the game works as well as it does honestly is impressive. There's a curve, right? We've seen this for years now, where it's like, okay, size of the company, size of company, quality of game, of that size of company. So the best game ever, right? We can have 100% at one person dev, right? We can have Stardew Valley, right? Boom, goated, Stardew Valley. We got Dwarf Fortress, right? And then we got middle tier companies, like even early id Software stuff, right? We got 12 people, 24 people. This is what is possible. What is the possible quality of the game? And then like the way that it usually works is no matter what, once the company gets big enough, the potential quality of the game goes down. Period, right? Like, what are we going to get? Call of Duty? Call of Duty? What else are we going to get? We're going to get fucking Assassin's Creed. Oh, cool. What a cool game. Like, awesome game series. Give me more, right? You're like a big enough company, you're usually going to get a lot of trash. The fact that Diablo 4 is actually decent with how big of a company it's coming from, I actually think is like kind of cool. I think they probably, the team inside Diablo was probably decently shielded. Not fully shielded, right? It's got all the MTX and everything. But considering they didn't go full Diablo Immortal, I think at least the Diablo 4 team managed to be moderately shielded from the executive meddling, and it didn't turn into an absolute fiesta. And considering it came from such a big company, that's kind of all we can ask for right now. Diablo 4 has years of experience to draw upon. Yeah, but they also like wanted to break the mold in a few ways. The amount of development effort, like hardware and software infrastructure and everything that it would take for Diablo to create the open world, the weird open world that they have in Diablo 4, that's an incredible undertaking. And there's always more learning to be made. And yeah, the foundation of the game, the depth of the builds, that's pretty shallow. Diablo 2 and Diablo 3, right? Like they wanted, that's like their template, right? And they wanted to keep it kind of more shallow. But where they did innovate, I think they did a good job, you know? And, you know, if it just turns into a renown grind, like the exact same renown grind every season, I get you, right? There's a lot of potential pitfalls, and there's a lot of potential, like this game could not realize like where it could actually become. But I think honestly, I had really low expectations after the beta. Any of you guys that watched me on the stream when I was playing the beta, I was grumpy. I was not having fun. And I was pleasantly surprised when the game released. For me, Diablo 4 is a 6 out of 10 with the potential to be more. I think that's fair. And 6 out of 10 is fine, right? That's a passing grade. Barely, but it's passing.
This video just cemented the feeling right now as I say this and read the script that I don't have a reason to log in to Diablo 4.
I mean, that's true.
And what I
but
really want
the game has 2 weeks of content. That's what I keep saying. On release, 2 weeks of content, wait for the season. And that's okay. Like, I don't think a game on release should incentivize you immediately to play the game nonstop for, 6 weeks without sleeping or eating or drinking, right? Like, that's okay.
to do now is go spin up Path of Exile because it's a better game. End of review.
I'm there. I'm like, PoE is that's my baby, right? Like I do think it's, especially in the current state, I think it's a better game. But Diablo 4 has unique stuff, particularly encouraging you to play with friends, hell tides, etc. Like it's got unique stuff that has its own value. You play them for different reasons. I would not call Diablo 4 go play PoE. Like as someone who is very dedicated to Path of Exile, I wouldn't call it go play PoE out of 10. You play it for a different reason. It's okay to like 2 different games for 2 different reasons, even in the same genre. I hope he has fun playing Path of Exile. If he needs to learn anything more, if he wants to play a cool build next season, come on down. I'll help you out.